I want to tell you something before we start. I was 12 years old. I was at Idia College, Edo State. And one day, we had protesters broke out. We were protesting SAP. We got to school that morning, and the school board said, strike has started. And we did something that 11 years old should never have to do. We jumped the fence. If you know Idia College in Edo State, it's one of the highest fence in that state. With our tiny legs, with desperate energy, pure rage, we didn't even have a name for yet. We were running towards the government house, and they tear gassed us. Children. They tear gassed children. Because a military man had broken Nigeria so completely that even children felt it in their bodies and decided enough. That military man's name was Ibrahim Babangida. And I want you to know that 30-something years later, that man just launched a book not long ago, titled it A Journey in Service. And Nigeria entire leadership class showed up to celebrate him with billions of nairas donated in one night while you struggle to it. This documentary is my answer to that book launch. The Evil Genius. This video is about how Babangida broke Nigeria and how Nigerian leaders celebrated him for it. This video is about to show you the Kissinger reports in the flesh. If you never remember anything about this video, don't you ever forget that. The Kissinger reports in the flesh and births of Ibrahim Babangida. Part 1. Who is this man? Ibrahim Babangida was born August 17, 1941 in Mina, Niger State. He called himself, and this is important, military president. Every military ruler before him was head of state, but Babangida wanted the prestige of a president without the accountability that comes with being elected by anyone. So he created a new title for himself. That single act tells you everything about the man. He was the member of the coup that removed Murtala Mohammed's successor. He was the army chief under Muhammad Buhari. And in August 1985, he turned on Buhari, the man whose government he served, and overthrew him in a coup. He promised to end human rights abuses. He promised to hand over power to civilians by 1990. He ruled for 8 years. And when he finally left, he left a country that had been systematically dismantled. They call him two names, the Evil Genius and Maradona, because of his ability to dribble and deceive, to move the ball and leave everyone confused about where it went. Both names fits perfectly. Part 2, the Western assets, what the CIA said. Now, when I say he is the Kissinger report in the flesh, pay attention to this section. Now, I want to show you something, not a blog post, not a rumor, not someone's opinion on social media. A declassified CIA intelligence document available on the CIA's own website in their public reading room, verifiable by anyone with internet access. The document is a classified assessment written while Babangida was in power. Here is what the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States of America wrote about the man you called your military president. I quote, "As long as President Babangida remains in power, Lagos will continue in its present moderate pro-Western direction. Despite sometimes nationalistic and anti-Western rhetoric, U.S. Embassy officials report that Babangida hopes to bring Nigeria closer to the West and repeatedly seek U.S. advice and assistance." Listen to that. Repeatedly seek U.S. advice and assistance. Not Nigerians' advice, American advice. The same document explained why America cared. Nigerians' oil, Nigerians' trade, $3.1 billion in 1985, and Nigerians' usefulness as an ally in international forum. And the CIA concluded, as long as this man is in power, America's interests in Nigeria are safe. Let that connect with what you know about the Kissinger reports, NSSM 200. We said Nigeria must never be allowed to become the regional giant it had the potential to become. Babangida was that insurance policy. A Nigerian military man doing American strategic work, while Nigerians suffered under his boot. This is not conjecture. This is a CIA document on their own website with their own seal. Part 3, the SAP, how he sold your future. The working Kissinger report is still fresh and alive, breathing, soulless. Here is what I was too young to understand when I jumped that fence. I knew there was hardship. I felt it. We all felt it. The prices, the scarcity, the desperation in the faces of adults. What I did not know, what most Nigerians were never told, is that the hardship had a design. It was called the Structural Adjustment Program, SAP, designed and recommended by the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, implemented by Babangida in 1986. But here is the part that reveals the genius of the manipulation. Babangida did something clever before he implemented it. He held a national debate. He asked Nigerians, should we take the IMF loan or not? Nigerians said no. Loudly, clearly, decisive. They said no. So Babangida announced, we have heard the people. We will not take the IMF loan. And then he implemented every single IMF condition anyway, packaged as a homegrown program. He let Nigerians vote no, then did what the IMF wanted, regardless. That's where they got the name Maradona. What SAP actually did to Nigeria in numbers. The naira was worth approximately 1 naira to $1 before SAP. By the time Babangida left in 1993, it becomes 22 naira to $1. That is not a devaluation. That is a demolition. Nigeria's external debt spiked by over 51% during his tenure, reaching $22.68 billion by 1990. The share owed to the IMF and World Bank are more than doubled. Subsidies removed. Education spending cut. Healthcare spending cut. Public enterprise privatized and sold, often to the same political elites that made the decisions. By early 1990s, nearly 45% of Nigerians lived below the poverty line. The same time, our professors and teachers were telling us about a great nation. 45% of the population below the poverty line. Because the IMF and World Bank said, remove the subsidies, devalue the currency, open the markets. And Babangida said, yes, sir. And a predatory elite was created overnight. Businessmen and regime allies who profited from currency speculation, while ordinary Nigerians could not afford food. That elite is still ruling Nigeria today. SAP was the Kissinger document made flesh. The professor told Maitama Sule in 1967, we will not allow you to rest. We will create one problem after another. SAP was the economic version of that promise kept. And Babangida is a walking Kissinger report, still breathing or soulless. Part 4, the man who was silenced, Dele Giwa. On October 16, 1986, 3 days before he died, a journalist named Dele Giwa was summoned to the headquarters of the State Security Service in Lagos. He had written a column criticizing Babangida foreign exchange policy. He had been accused of meeting with labor unions and student groups. He had been accused of planning a socialist revolution. He was a journalist doing his job. 3 days later, on October 19, 1986, a parcel arrived at his home in Ikeja. He opened it. It exploded. As they were rushing him to hospital, Dele Giwa kept murmuring the same words. They have gotten me. They have gotten me. He died that day. Now let me tell you what investigations and journalists have argued for nearly 4 decades. No civilian, no individual, No organization outside the military and security apparatus had the technical capability to deliver a parcel bomb in Nigeria in 1986. The technique of packing explosive into a package and sealing it so it detonates only when opened was sophisticated military technology. The parcel that killed Dele Giwa bore the letterhead of the commander-in-chief. Babangida has already denied responsibility. He called it a booby trap designed to destabilize his regime. He blamed the victim. He blamed Newswatch management. He blamed lawyers who dared to fight for justice. To this day, no prosecution, no conviction, nobody charged. The file is still technically open. And when the Oputa panel, Nigeria's Human Rights Investigation Commission, under Obasanjo, called Babangida to come and speak, to face the families of those who suffered under his regime, to account for the crime of his years in power, he refused. He did not appear. A man with nothing to hide does not refuse to speak. Part 5, June 12, the crime that cannot be forgiven. In June 1993, Nigeria held a presidential election. International observers, including Americans, declared it free and fair. The freest, fairest election in Nigeria history. Moshood, Kashimawo, Olawole Abiola won. Babangida, who had overseen 8 years of economic destruction, political manipulation, and unresolved political murder, was supposed to hand over power. On June 23, 1993, he annulled the election. No reason that made sense, just annulled. The country erupted. People like me, young people, students, ordinary Nigerians, took to the streets, who were chased, who were beaten, who were tear gassed. That was when we jumped that fence. Babangida must go. Abiola himself was eventually arrested. He sat in detention. He never became president. In July 1998, 5 years after winning the election that was stolen from him, Abiola died in detention. And now hear this. In 2025, Ibrahim Babangida published a memoir 32 years after leaving office. In that book, he finally admitted what every Nigerian already knew. There was no doubt in my mind. MKO Abiola won the election. He satisfied all the requirements. He knew. He cancelled it anyway. A man died in prison because of his decision. And he wrote it in a book titled A Journal in Service and charged 17 billion at the launch. Part 6, the book launch, The Shame of the Nation. February 20, 2025, Transcorp Hilton Hotel, Abuja. The most powerful gathering of Nigerians leaders class in recent memory. Present at that event, gathered to celebrate Ibrahim Babangida, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the sitting president of Nigeria, former President Olusegun Obasanjo, who chaired the occasion, former President Goodluck Jonathan, former head of state Yakubu Gowon, former head of state Abdulsalam Abubakar, former vice president Atiku Abubakar, Nnamdi Sambo, and Yemi Osibanjo, who reviewed the book, Senate President Godswill Akpabio, Peter Obi, who ran for president in 2023 on a platform of change, Rabiu Kwankwaso, Aliko Dangote, Abdulsalam Rabiu, Tony Elumelu, T.Y. Danjuma, Folorunsho Alakija. The keynote address was delivered by the former president of Ghana, Nana Akufo-Addo, and they did not just attend. They donated. Dangote 2 billion naira per year for 4 years, 8 billion total. Abdulsalam Rabiu of BUA Group, 5 billion naira. T.Y. Danjuma, 3 billion naira. In one night, over 17 billion naira was donated to the IBB Presidential Library. 17 billion in one night. For a man who implemented a policy that drove 45% of Nigeria into poverty, watched a journalist die by letter bomb 2 days after his last interrogation by state security, and never explained it. Annulled the freest election in Nigeria history. Kept the winner of that election in detention until he died. Refused to appear before Nigeria's Human Rights Commission. And then 32 years later, wrote a book calling it A Journey in Service. In a functioning country, in any country with genuine accountability, that man would not be launching a book. He would be facing a tribunal. He would be in court. His assets would be frozen pending investigation. The families of those who suffered under his rule would be receiving justice, not watching their leaders spraying naira on his stage. But instead, the sitting president came. Every living former leader came. Africa's richest man pledged 8 billion naira, and they called it celebration. I want to ask every single person who attended that event, every president, every former head of state, every business leader, every so-called voice of opposition, what message did you send to every Nigerian who suffered under SAP? What did you say to the children who were tear-gassed? What did you say to children like us who were tear-gassed protesting his policy? What did you say to the family of Dele Giwa? What did you say to the children of MKO Abiola? What did you say to the 45% of Nigeria who were poor because of his policies, because of SAP? You said it doesn't matter. You said power protects power. You said we celebrate each other. And you, the ordinary Nigerians, can manage. That is what that book launch said. And we must call it what it is. It is a disgrace. Not small disgrace. Not a political mistake. A moral disgrace that reveals exactly why Nigeria cannot move forward. Because the class of people who are supposed to hold each other accountable are the same class of people celebrating each other's crime. Tinubu, who is implementing SAP style, subsidy remover today, went to celebrate the man who first broke Nigeria with SAP. Obasanjo, who shared the Oputa panel that Babangida refused to appear before, went and shared his book launch. Peter Obi, who asked Nigerians to believe in change, sat in that hall, and 17 billion. Why Nigerian children go to school under trees was donated in one night. One night. But 7, what is wrong with us? Let's see the mirror. Now, I said at the beginning, what is wrong with this generation? Because our generation, we who were students during SAP, we who jumped fence and ran into tear gas, we had enough. We forced the Babangida out. Not the army, not the courts, the streets. So what happened to this generation? I think part of the answer is Abiola. Because when Abiola was denying the presidency, Nigerians across every ethnic lines joined that fight. North, south, east, west. For once, the common enemy was clear. And Nigerians moved as one people. And then Abiola died. And the movement died with him. And something broke in the Nigerian spirit. The lesson the political class took from June 12 was not, Nigerians will fight for justice. The lesson they took was, if you keep Nigerians divided, they will never sustain a fight long enough to win. And so, they have kept us divided ever since. Tribe, religion, region, North versus South, Christian versus Muslim, Yoruba versus Igbo versus Hausa versus Edo versus Ijaw, Niger Delta versus everyone. Why they, the political class, sit together in Transcorp Hilton, eating the same food, drinking the same drink, donating billions to each other vanity projects. They are not divided. Only we are divided. And as long as we are divided, they will keep doing this. Another Babangida will come. Another SAP will come. Another election will be stolen. Another journalist will die. Another Oputa panel will be formed, refused, and forgotten. And another book will be launched. And they will all attend. And we will watch. My final words. Babangida titled his memoir, A Journey in Service. I want to ask, service to whom? Not to the 11 years old who jumped the fence at Idia College. Not to the families of students who died in SAP riots. Not to the family of Dele Giwa. Not to the children of MKO Abiola. Not to the 45% of Nigerians who were pushed into poverty. Nigeria that should have been in one free election had been allowed to stand in 1993. A journey in service to the West, that the CI said he faithfully served. A journey in service to the IMF and World Bank, whose condition he implemented. A journey in service to himself and the elites that have promoted him for 30 years. That is the journey that was launched in Transcorp Hilton on February 20, 2025, with 17 billion naira donated by the same class of leaders who will tomorrow tell you that they are fighting for Nigeria. Know them by what they celebrate. Know them by who they protect. Know them by who they never persecute. And then decide, with that knowledge, what your own journey in service to Nigeria will look like. Because that fence is still there, and somebody has to jump it. My name is Inye. Know the truth and speak it anyway. Share this video. As you are sharing, let your caption be the disgrace of a nation. I will drop my link to my YouTube in case this page disappears. We will see our place to talk.